Why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
Let me just stop you there. And let me say this, that in 1863, America freed the slaves through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln. Yet gave the slaves no land or nothing, in reality, as a matter of fact, to get started with. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and in the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give to the white peasants from Europe an economic base. Yet they refused that same economic base to their black peasants from Africa who came here involuntarily, in chains and shackles, in the bows of ships, in some of the most deplorable conditions known to man or any species, partaking in a voyage that would last sometimes 4 to 5 months. And those slaves that would survive those voyages, the fraction of slaves that would survive those voyages, had to work their fingers to the bone, from sun up to sundown, for free, for more than 244 years. These are the Americans that America refused that same economic base to. These are the newly freed Americans that America would refuse that same economic base to. So emancipation for the Negro was freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat and freedom without land to cultivate. Therefore, it was freedom and famine at the same time. Y'all quiet. So when white America says to the Negro that he ought to pick himself up by his bootstraps, he doesn't take in consideration the hundreds of years of slavery. White America doesn't take in consideration the many years of segregation. And I, for one, do believe that we ought to do all that we can do, and that we ought to pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps. But I also believe that it's a cruel jest for white Americans to suggest to a bootless man that he ought to pick himself up by his bootstraps. And many of us in this country, America, has been left bootless by the thousands and millions as a result of America's many, many years of oppression, and as a result of an American society that has made his or her skin color a stigma and something worthless and degrading. I believe I've answered your question, but if I haven't, I'll be more than happy to continue.
When you stood on the Lincoln Memorial that day in August '63, you said, "I had a dream."
Well, I must confess that that dream that I had on that day has in many points become a nightmare.
The history of the United States is 100% based on human trafficking. 100%. Our country's foundation is human trafficking. They fucking kidnapped black people and made them work for free. George Washington, did you know this, was the #1 slaveholder in Virginia, wherever the fuck he was? Yeah, he was the #1 slaveholder. George Washington was a human trafficker. Supposedly his wooden teeth thing, it was slave teeth. In his mouth, the teeth of people that were kidnapped, that he was making work for free. This makes Dahmer look like a fucking Boy Scout.